hopefully we're going to drop into a bit of a world boss to cover this topic today. Is Guild Wars 2 a better MMO than Final Fantasy 14? Right? Now, obviously, when it comes to anything out there that we consume on an entertainment level, subjectivity is going to come into it, right? It could be the worst, and I mean the worst. Absolute just dog shit. Oh, here we go. Right in, boys and girls. Fucking tequila. That's what I'm calling him today, tequila, right? And look at that. Barely any slowdown compared to how it used to be, right? Which is fantastic, right? So, one of the things that really stands out with Guild Wars 2 is simply this. All the red text, that, all the green text that you can see there, red text, I'm thinking of the target. All the green text of names there, that's all players. These players have rocked up to partake in a world boss that has been around almost as long as the game has in existence. Right? It is crazy. After all of these years, these world bosses still attract people to play them. That's awesome. I'm going to see if I can get on my sky scale and go in, if I can, for a bit of a, aerial shot, right, of this boss while he's like bashing on these players. Everything in Guild Wars 2 can be done with everyone else in the game without restriction, right? So Final Fantasy 14 is a game that, while it has an incredible storyline, not pre-ordered Endwalker, so this isn't a slant against the game. But if we're talking about whether or not is Guild Wars 2 a better MMO experience in terms of what and how an MMO should be versus Final Fantasy 14, I think in some ways Guild Wars 2 pips it to the post, right? Because of the simple notion that you could just be wandering like over here and go, what the fuck, this is a giant ass war boss, right? And you can just go partake in it, right? You can just run over and start taking part in this world boss event. And when you look at your map, right, normally you'll have like, normally it'd be an orange circle, but it's red. They must have changed that for like being a world boss. You can just run inside of that orange circle and partake and help other people out. You don't have to party up. You don't have to get permission. You just partake in it. Now in Final Fantasy, sure, you can help out other players, but if somebody's tagged a mob, again, more of a traditional style of MMO here, if somebody's tagged a mob, you miss out. Unless you're in a party and you're doing it together, right? Unless it's a fate, which is something that you run into with other people and you can partake in it then, and then it's considered a group activity. So this is where Guild Wars 2 have taken that notion or that idea and applied it to every single thing in this game. It allows you to partake in any event whatsoever to make sure that you will always get some form of reward. And multiple rewards, be it experience for partaking in the event, from gear or loot that drops from partaking in the event. It doesn't have to be just a world boss, it can be anything. And what's even great too, you'll see over here on the right hand side, you've got these heart hubs, which have a whole bunch of things that you can do, usually to fill up that bar and to, complete the heart. It's not just one thing and that's it. Again, you just run in, and while I can be partaking in this world boss event, I'm also in range of being able to do that as well. Multiple things working together without you doing too much to be able to think about it. Does this make this a better MMO experience than the old system of pick up this quest, pick up that quest, go hand in X, go do Y? Whereas in this game, it has a more visceral feel. There is a knock-on effect. If you fail an event, right? If you fail an event, it doesn't matter whether it's a big world boss, doesn't matter if it's a tiny little one where you just maybe an escort quest or something like that. There is a knock-on effect to that. And the reason for that is so that way the world feels alive. That way it makes the world feel important on every level, even on the micro level, of partaking in events that go on in the world. Does this make it a better MMO than Final Fantasy? Yes, it does to a degree, right? Both of these games have incredible storylines. However, yet again, Final Fantasy XIV forces you to disband your party to pursue the actual storyline quest. Right now, I don't know if that's changed at all, but in my experience, even up in a couple of months ago, always had to disband the party to do the quest by myself. In Guild Wars 2, you don't have to do that. In fact, whoever initiates the quest, regardless of level, whoever initiates it can actually be the main character speaking in the role, in the cutscenes, and your characters, like your party members or whatnot, will also be there as well, which is really cool. And this world is massive, right? This world is absolutely massive, and we are just about to have Cantha added to the map. And not just that, the fact that so many of these maps and zones have not only great breadth but depth. Go into Heart of Thorns maps in the Maguma jungle, you are going to be experiencing essentially a lot of verticality with how the maps work, right? Going all the way to the tops of trees, as you can see in this graphic here, all the way down to the very depths, well down to the roots of, you know, and the ground floor of a lot of these zones. It's incredible how much detail and scope and little things that make an MMO fantastic. One of the wonderful things that they've had in this game since day one is having essentially an exploratory mode for each zone without even realizing it. Right? So naturally, like any MMO, you walk through the zone, you unlock different parts of it, and you can see what's going on. But up here, in this part here, let me just move my logo out of the way. You've got a completion thing for this zone. You have Vistas, which is basically a small little camera thing that you can you click on it, and it has a nice little vista. You know, it shows you the beautiful surroundings. You also have your hero challenges that you can go around and unlock hero points to go towards your elite specializations and your standard specializations, actually. You've also got your waypoints, which allows you to teleport around the different areas in the map. And of course, you've got your points of interest as well. Now, if we go back to other zones, say we'll go back all the way over to Queensdale, added to that list will be the heart hubs. These are nice little points that allow you to look at the map and go, oh, I haven't been over to this area, I wonder if there's anything there. And of course, when you highlight, like I've maxed out for this zone, but if you actually highlight each one of these things here, it'll actually flash on the map. I did a video on this channel talking about how every single zone, right, is completely, you know, a massive co-op experience. And to look for these guys, scouts. Scouts you can see anywhere on the zone, even if you haven't uncovered it. Because when you click on it, what they do is that they unlock that part visually on the map to show you what's there. Again, increasing your ability to explore and move around the world and make it interesting. Oh, what's that little pocket down there? Maybe I'll go check it out, or a cave or whatnot that might actually be, you know, leading to another part of the map that might have a point of interest, or a vista in there. There is so much in this game that encourages exploration. It's awesome. It is so good. Whereas in Final Fantasy XIV, you will very much run down a linear path. Sure, you can go exploring, but there's no benefit for it. Not really, right? Sure, you have things like, you know, you can obviously, increase the, the classes or the jobs for, crafting and going around and mining things or collecting resources, sure. But every game has that, including this one. But there's no incentive to go out into the world to completely map an entire zone to find all of these things here, which can lead you into other stories and dynamic events that you didn't know existed until you actually went to that area, which is pretty cool. Again, ArenaNet's job with Guild Wars 2 was to make the world feel alive. What can we do to make it feel like, you know, wherever you go in this world, there is going to be something that is going on that you can partake in that gives you experience. Now, Final Fantasy 14 got rid, or well, not got rid of, it simply doesn't have any sort of like talent trees. You simply have, you know, your main class, and then you have the ability to unlock jobs, which is essentially like an upgrading that particular class in a couple of different directions. In Guild Wars 2, they take a completely different approach. And in Guild Wars 2, what they did was make it so that you have your main profession or class. So I main as a necromancer, and there's 9 professions in this game. And then both with Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire, they added in what they called elite specializations. Elite specializations allow you to essentially, you know, learn a whole new profession within your profession. And it doesn't take away, by and large, it adds to it. So I'm running on my Reaper specialization from Heart of Thorns. So what it does is it adds in an extra row of abilities for me to be able to choose from. If I change to Scourge, then it will do the same as well. And in Guild Wars 2, again, unlike Final Fantasy, where, you know, yes, unless you're like a melee class, you know, where the weapon will actually matter, like most sort of tab targeting MMOs, the weapons don't really do all that much in terms of, like, you know, feeling sort of unique. You know, you're holding a sword, it will do sword stuff depending on the weapon. In Guild Wars 2, what they've done is that they have attached weapon abilities, or sorry, skill abilities to each weapon. So right now, I am running a main hand axe and an offhand focus. The first 3 abilities will be my main hand, the last 2 will be my offhand. But you can also wield weapons that are dual wield. Like a, you know, two-handed. So I swap to my greatsword, and all 5 of my abilities change because it requires both hands to wield it. And you can swap these weapons on the fly. In fact, I worked out, if you run as an elementalist in Guild Wars 2, on the first 5 abilities alone, the fact that you can swap between 4 elements, and the fact that you can, you know, essentially dual wield, as in like, or weapon swap between 2 different types of weapons. I think I worked out that just on the first half of your abilities, you can have anywhere of access completely, of access up to about 40 skills alone. That's crazy. So while you might think this is restrictive, it's actually not. Every single character has a healing ability. Every single character or profession. Every single character has access to an elite skill, right? And every single character has access to a nice table of utility abilities that they can swap anywhere at any time as long as you're out of combat. There is no restriction whatsoever. None at all, right? And some of these abilities, for example, when I swing my greatsword, it'll swap to another ability. Well, actually, it's not going to do that because I don't have an attack, tab targeted for me to attack, right? So let's fix that. So I'm going to go clown on this bandit highwayman. You watch the ability. It'll change through 3 different ones. 2, 3. 1, 2. And then it's going to stay on that one until I do the 3rd ability. There we go. There we go. Nice, right? A lot of abilities like that. Multifunction within the button itself, which is very cool, right? This game, in its professions alone, although I am worried about some of them with End of Dragons, really are a step above and beyond what they do in other MMOs. And going back to the talent point system that, you know, again with Final Fantasy, they don't really have that. you actually have the ability to come in and customize your character, right, with its abilities. Like, very easy. There's no payment system for it. You don't lose money by doing it. You simply just click on them and that's it. Again, adding a level of depth to your character to change them from being more sort of being more tough in a battle and lasting longer, to maybe being a little bit more of a glass cannon, but doing a ton of damage at the same time. So in the professions alone, there is a huge amount of customization. Whereas again, in something like Final Fantasy XIV, while you can have every single class learn on one single character, which is pretty good, unlike Guild Wars 2, where no, you have to learn one profession per character. In Final Fantasy XIV, there used to be some crossover with abilities, and they got rid of that, right? And it comes down to, yet again, like a lot of those sort of older style MMOs, what is the best rotation? There is no exclusionary stuff here. There is no Trinity here. There is no, we must have a tank, we must have a healer, we must have DPS. You're not being excluded from anything because you have decided that, you know what, I just want to run in with all these abilities. I have not once in the entire time that I have played Guild Wars 2 not be allowed to partake in something because I don't have a certain build that I'm running or certain abilities, which again is very cool. There is no restriction here, which means that every single piece of content in this game allows you to have full range at how you, the player, want to engage with it, and that's very cool. Another thing I want to talk about, and I know I'm probably missing stuff, but one of the things that's really big that most MMOs do have is mounts. And as I read a comment earlier today, mounts are essentially glorified pretty speed boosts. They don't do much else outside of that. Now in Guild Wars 2, this is our mount selection. You go, well, gee, geez, Retro, that's not a lot of mounts, right? But every single mount here has an ability and a set of abilities that make it unique, right? We have the Raptor mount, which is the first mount that you actually get in Path of Fire. And in Ender Dragons, both the Raptor and the Springer are actually going to be added as part of the storyline in Ender Dragons in case you didn't get Path of Fire. The Raptor has a massive long jump ability, right? I just pressed the wrong button there. Massive long jump for jumping over massive gorges, cliffs, whatnot. And you know what's really cool about this game? You know what's really cool? Is that a mount has its own health. Watch this. I'm not going to die. Right? And if I fall far enough, my mount will actually dismount me because its health is ended 0, but mine won't, which is very cool. You also have a mount's attack ability, which dismounts you at the same time, pressing on 1. And that allows you to, use that. So if you're walking around the world and you're like, I want to attack like this dude, I can press 1 and actually attack him, right? Which is very cool. They have that baked into the game. Every single mount in this game, in every part of the game, can be used. In dungeons, in raids, in fractals. You can mount up as long as you're not in combat. The Springer does high jump, allowing you to get to areas that you may not normally be able to access. The Skimmer, which is your water mount, which while very slow over land, is very, very fast over water, and with the mastery track that they brought in, allows you to actually go underwater as well, which is very cool. I don't think, I can get here. There we go. I can actually go underwater as well. Again, multifunction, right? We also have the Jackal, right? Canine mount, which has the ability to teleport. Plus giving access to portals that came in Path of Fire, which you can't get anywhere else unless you actually have this mount unlocked and those mastery tracks, leveled up. We have the Roller Beetle, which, as you'll see in a minute, is the fastest mount in the game. Has the ability to be able to break through certain walls that are marked for it. Again, a function that you can't find on any other mount. We have the Warclaw, Now the Warclaw is primarily used in its function for world versus world, but they made it so that you can still run around in PvE, but in world versus world you can upgrade this sucker to be able to tear down actual castle and fortress gates and whatnot, which is very cool. You also have the Griffin, which is kind of like a super mount, which is one of the closest ways you'll get to flying. Right, it's not a true flying mount where you can just like fly willy-nilly, but you can increase its speed or make it so that you can fly higher, and this is a wonderful mount to have. Again, a function that you can't find anywhere else. It's not as fast as the Raptor or as fast as the Roller Beetle, so using this to walk around on land is going to be pointless. And the last mount that they brought in before we get to Ender Dragons with the Siege Turtle is the Sky Scale, which me and my son recently got. It allows you to hover just like a helicopter. So if you think of the Griffin like a jet, the Sky Scale is like a helicopter, and it allows you to do things like this. Hang on, I'll do it over here. So if you're climbing, right, is it going to allow me to do it on this cliff face? No, it's not going to allow me. It's going to prove to me being a liar, right? No, it's not going to allow me to do it. Let me find somewhere where I can do it. You can actually attach a Sky Scale to the side of a building. Okay, so the mounts in Final Fantasy, while they're very cool, there we go. While the mounts in Final Fantasy are very cool, there's no other function outside of maybe some of them can carry extra players, and they just look cool, right? There's no other function for that. So every single mount in this game has a function, and of course End of Dragons, the Siege Turtle will allow you for the first time to be able to carry other party member. I was about to say members, but I'm still holding to that there will be other party members that you can carry. So what ArenaNet have done with Guild Wars 2 is to look at the MMO genre and go, what can we do to make this stand out and to make everything in this game feel like it matters? This game also has its own PvP section, right? Which allows you to, I'm in combat, there we go. Which takes your character, levels it straight up to 80, and you can partake in PvP immediately, right? Straight away. No questions asked, right? Still in combat apparently. What's attacking me? Oh, there we go. Was that it? No? We'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. So it doesn't matter what level you are. You can partake in PvP at any level you wish. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Right? That you can be able to jump in and enjoy PvP with your friends if you like that style of combat in an MMO. There are quite a few maps. I wouldn't mind a few more. But it's also a great way for you to jump in and try out any class that you want in PvP to see what all the abilities you're going to get, how it feels in combat, because the PvP section is very cool. There are training dummies and whatnot, but there's also a little area that you can go to in the Heart of the Mist, which is what it's called, that allow you to experience PvP in just like a brawling area. Again, you don't have to queue for it or anything like that. You can just jump in and experience it. Yet again, unlike other MMOs where they leave PvP to a certain higher level or max level, in Guild Wars 2 they try their best not to restrict you whatsoever, which again is very cool. It's this area here, right? There is so much in this game, it's ridiculous. I haven't even touched on dungeons, on Fractals as well, which I could probably do. I could just go all crazy out. By the way, you have gliding in this game as well, which came in Heart of Thorns, which again is another way for you to traverse. So now I am in the PvP area. I could just start wailing on people to try out different abilities, see how I feel, right? I can surrender too if I'm finding that I'm getting my ass kicked, stuff like that, right? And this allows you to just jump in and have a little bit of casual fun without sort of any restriction, right? And there is no restriction. Going back to the crafting thing, if you want to level up a crafting, you know, something for like mining or whatever it's called, right? You can do that. And if you change, it remembers what you were last, and so that way you can come back to it. Now, in Final Fantasy, yes, again, you can learn everything on one character, but, you know, this is just how Guild Wars 2 does it. It doesn't punish you because you change, right? And one of the last things I want to talk about is the world versus world area. World versus world is this, yet again, massive game mode, completely separate to the PvE and PvP world, combining both elements into one that allows you to siege castles and take over areas and stop other players from capturing them. And you look at this map. This is the map for this area that I'm on. Right here. Where am I? Where did I teleport in on? Must be here, right? I think I'm down. Yeah, I'm down here. Right? This is the map area. And then let's zoom all the way out. And these are the other areas that you can go to and partake in trying to take over and hold these areas. And they are recently, like, they are actually upgrading this process as well. They're streamlining it and making it a lot better. And of course, you can use your mount, the Warclaw, in this area too. And in World vs. World, it has its own unlock abilities too, for you to be able to increase your viability to, you know, partaking in everything that goes on in the World vs. World environment. It's amazing. So jumping back out of that, just to finalize, because I do want to finalize this video and I know it's getting on a little bit. But one of the great things that separates Guild Wars 2 away from games like Final Fantasy XIV, like World of Warcraft, is its accessibility. Its way of making you feel like you can partake in anything that's going on in the world without, you know, with very little restriction. Obviously, you're not going to be getting to something like a raid at level 1, but again, you know, there's nothing stopping you getting up to that level. Like, max levels is 80 in this game. It has stayed at 80 ever since the very first release. And one of the things that makes this game fantastic is its horizontal progression. So they don't need to increase the level. What they do is they add in mastery tracks for your character that you can check out here that allows you to go from every expansion. So the original, then Heart of Thorns, and then Path of Fire, and then Icebrood Saga, and then of course End of Dragons, and it allows you to go through and level up those masteries with multiple levels to access more and more in the game. Stuff that you didn't have access to before that allows you to have access to it now, which is pretty fucking cool, right? One of the last things I want to talk about, the fact that this game, right, we'll just show you quickly. This game has raids. This game has fractals, which fractals are micro dungeons, and it also has dungeons. You also have the ability to find other players by going into looking for group area, and not just for dungeons or raids or fractals. It allows you to look everywhere. You can click on Central Terria and go, oh, are there any parties running? Okay, what's going on here? Or maybe Path of Fire. Is anything happening in Elon Riverlands? Oh, okay, there isn't. But you can also create a group. And so that way other people can come help. And believe me, people will help you in this game. Yet again, everything is scratching everyone's back. It makes sense to be able to create a game that allows a world to be able to benefit not the person that you're just also helping, but also you too. It creates a tighter sense of community so that people can come together and work on a common goal, regardless. So you have the ability for this part here, fractals, which also increase in difficulty as well, right? Again, something that you level up to. You also have your raids that you can access as well in its own raid area. And of course, you've got the dungeons in the world as well, which is pretty cool. So while dungeons do not outweigh the amount of dungeons, say, for Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft and the raids, the fractal side of it definitely does. And I've said this before, and I'm going to finalize on this. We don't have specific areas locked away from the rest of the world in Guild Wars 2 for us to be able to engage in a raid event, right? Guild Wars 2, Guild Wars 2's entire world is a raid event. Meaning you can go anywhere at any amount of characters and partake in any event, both massive bosses that you saw in the beginning of this video, right down to a micro level of helping an escort quest, which then, if successful, will unlock another part of that quest chain. You don't have to click on anything to pick up the quest. It just happens. You're just there. You just partake in it because you are there, existing within the area that is designated for you to partake in it. Everything in this game is a group event. Should be called Group Wars 2, actually. And that's what makes Guild Wars 2 a true, what I consider a true evolution and superior MMO to most other MMOs who are still holding themselves back. Yes, Final Fantasy XIV has a great story. You don't have to group up with barely anyone. Although, they have integrated dungeons into Final Fantasy XIV's storyline, which is bad if you can't get people. If you're a streamer and whatnot, and you're a big streamer, yeah, sure, you're going to always have people there to, form your group and partake in this content. But what if you don't? What if you can't? What if you need to progress the story and there simply isn't anyone around to help? Yes, you can ask for help. Yes, you can search for groups. But baking stuff like that into a story can be very dangerous, because it means that if the population does go down, how do you progress the storyline in order to get to the end of what's going to happen, with your character and the story itself? So Guild Wars 2 has taken a good, hard, long look. Jeez, look at that fucking... Dude, look at that gear. That's amazing, right? Guild Wars 2 has taken a good, hard look at other MMOs and gone, okay, that's a pretty good idea. How do we make it better? How do we make it so that it feels like everyone is a part of the same call, part of the same group? It is an incredible MMO. It is an incredible underdog MMO. And I'm buying that chair. You see this chair? I'm going to buy that. I want to see how it looks. I haven't seen anyone sitting in one yet, because that's awesome. I'm buying that chair. That's badass. That's a nice chair. Yes, you can have chairs. You've got little toys and stuff that you can summon as well, right? You can have instruments that you can play too. So people that like playing instruments in Final Fantasy XIV, there are instruments in this as well. There are, right? There is a literal poo-ton of content in this game. And the cities themselves are massive. And I mean massive. Multi-leveled, multi-layered. It is incredible. The amount of cities. Every single race has their own city, and then a central city for everyone, which is Lion's Arch. And unlike other MMOs where they will gravitate to a certain city because it's the most popular and most convenient for stuff, Guild Wars 2 always has players in every city I've ever been to throughout the entire time that I've been playing this game. And it's free to play. You can download Guild Wars 2 right now, free to play, all the way up to level 80, right? And if you buy Path of Fire expansion, you will get Heart of Thorns with it as well. If you buy End of Dragons, you'll get everything as well. Unless I'm wrong, I don't think I am. I'm pretty sure you do. And End of Dragons comes out in February, which isn't too far away. It's an incredible MMO, incredible storytelling, incredible amount of side content that you can do. There are achievements that you can chase as well. It's got PvP, which is probably the best in the MMO market. It's got World versus World, which is probably the best PvE/PvP experience that you'll probably find in any other MMO. You don't have people stealing your mining nodes or your, chopping down trees, and then you've got to wait for it to respawn. Nothing in this game restricts you. And because of that, it makes you feel like everything in this game is working together as one common group for one common goal. So, is Guild Wars 2 a better game than Final Fantasy XIV, a better MMO? Well, subjectivity, of course, people will like something because they prefer it, and they prefer an art style or a soundtrack or storytelling and whatnot. But Guild Wars 2, as far as I'm concerned, is the most evolutionary MMO on the market that when rivaled with its competitors, leaves them in the dust. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you guys next time right here on the Full Rotation.